So it's the end of day 4 of the new league, and we just hit a maximum theoretical damage per second of about 5 million for a Spark character. I figured this milestone would provide a good opportunity for a deep dive on Spark because we haven't done any crazy investing yet. I think this video would be a good leaping point to transition your second character into Spark if this is something that interests you. And it can also help as a blueprint if you league started Spark and you wanted some ideas. Now, prior to this league, the issues with Spark were mainly criticisms on its defenses. I've put a lot of focus on this build's defense, and I think we're going to transition into some gameplay footage while I talk about all our defenses, and then we'll go into the actual deep dive. All right. So the first main defense is that we permafreeze all enemies. We do this by converting to cold damage via the unique ring called the Brotherhood. This ring is pretty cheap. Last time I checked it was around 20 chaos. Another layer of defense is curse immunity. We achieve this by reaching 100% reduced curse effect. We get 75% from consecrated ground from our ascendancy, and we get the other 30% from the Pantheon Soul of Yugal. We also have ailment immunity, and I'm saying this in air quotes. The reason is we get this in a sort of janky fashion. We get freeze immunity from the Pantheon Brine King. We get shock immunity from Tempest Shield. And we get ignite immunity from a craft on our enduring mana flask, which is very, very easy to have 100% uptime with. We also have 65% chaos resistance on gear, which mitigates poison and chaos damage. We have reflect immunity. We get 60% reduced on the tree, and we get 50% from the Pantheon Soul of Yugal, which means we will never take reflected damage. We also have a fairly high physical damage reduction of 83%. We have a flat armor value of 29,000. We get this from the Determination Aura coupled with Defiance Banner. We also have some percentage increased armor on the tree, and we try and get armor bases on our gear to get some flat armor. This is coupled with 16% additional physical damage reduction because we have 4 minimum endurance charges at all time thanks to the new Forbidden Flame and Forbidden Flesh jewels. This build has a fairly high block chance. Right now it's sitting at 44% attack block. This is achieved through gear and the tree. We also have 45% spell block via the Tempest Shield buff, as well as the tree and our gear. Our last form of defense is our recovery. We have a fairly high life leech rate of 1,000 per second, and we also have a high life regeneration rate of around 600 per second. All right. So before we get into the fun stuff, we have to do a little bit of theory. And that theory is how to calculate your total DPS. So POB right here says we're doing 1 million DPS, and this isn't accurate. To conceptualize this DPS, imagine you are standing right in front of the boss, and the map goes outwards infinitely in all directions. So you're just standing there, casting your spark into the boss. Your spark is piercing through the boss, and it just goes forward forever. Now, in reality, there are going to be walls, so your spark is going to go through the boss, and it's going to be bouncing all over the place, potentially even coming back to the boss. The way Spark works is it shoots 7 projectiles, and every 0.66 seconds, one of those 7 projectiles can do damage again to that enemy. So to conceptualize your total maximum DPS, you have to use your skill effect duration, which you get in the calculations tab. Now yours is going to be 3.3 if you follow my skill tree, because I'm only getting skill duration on the skill tree. So take your skill duration, that's been buffed to 3.3 from the skill tree, and divide it by 0.66, because we can only do an instance of damage per cast every 0.66 seconds, which means every cast can do 5 instances of damage in the perfect scenario. So we can multiply that 1 million by 5. And if you want to conceptualize this perfect scenario, again, imagine you're standing right in front of the boss and you're just casting nonstop, but you guys are in this tiny, tiny room and there's walls surrounding you really, you're like packed into this room. So all your spark bolts are just bouncing off these walls because you have a lot of projectile speed and they're passing through the boss like super fast. So every 0.66 seconds, one of those spark bolts is going to do another instance of damage. Now, in that scenario, you're doing 5 million damage. There are also scenarios where you could be doing even less than 1 million total DPS. And that would be, I don't know, for some reason, you're just like not even aiming at the boss. So obviously some projectiles are going to bounce into the boss, but you're even hitting less than 1 projectile per time you cast. But in most scenarios, if you're in a small boss arena, you're going to be doing closer to 5 million. And if you're in an absolutely massive arena and the boss is off screen, you may be doing a bit less than 1 million. So just keep that in mind. That is how we calculate our total DPS. All right, so now let's get on to the gearing and the costs associated behind it. The most expensive of my gear and the least quantifiable is the weapon, but you don't need to match my weapon. Just try and get whatever your budget allows. Now the most important stats are +1 to level of lightning spell skill gems. You can also get +1 to level of all spell skill gems. Either of those will work in buffing our spark. Getting really high spell damage or really high lightning damage is also really good. Getting global critical strike multiplier, very good as well. Getting cast speed, very good. Those are all like the T1 type of mods you should be aiming for. And a little bit below that would be increased critical strike chance. As you can see, I do have that on my wand. It's still a really good stat. It's just, it's more widely available through other means. Now, another stat that's around the same tier as critical strike chance would be projectile speed. Again, very nice, but not as good as the other stuff I mentioned. Oh, and I didn't mention the flat lightning damage to spells. That's another really good one. So there's plenty of options that you can look for when making your live search. And you can go for a dagger, a scepter, or a wand. Don't feel like you have to get a dagger. Any of those bases will work just fine. Now, the next piece of gear is the helmet. Nothing special about my helmet. It has 30% increased spark projectile speed, and you probably want to get an armor base. I paid 10 chaos for this base, and I crafted it myself. You can, if you have some essences, you could use some greed to get the guaranteed life roll and just slam it till it looks okay. I tried that. I didn't get anything that looked good, so I moved on to my fossils. You can use plenty of different types of fossils. The downside of using pristine is it blocks out the armor modifiers. So what I did was I just decided, hey, I wouldn't mind some chaos resistance. So I slammed some chaos. I ended up getting a pretty bad chaos resistance roll of 14%, but I got 122 maximum life. So I was like, you know what? This is good enough. So the helmet didn't cost very much. This shield, paid around 50C for it. Maybe on the high end, it would be 1 Exalted Orb. Now, the mod that you want to look for on a damage shield, which is the type of shield I'm using, is +1 to level of all lightning spell skill gems. Other stuff you might want to get are chance to block spell damage, critical strike chance, life. There are lots of good suffixes you can craft. I crafted double damage. Shield is pretty flexible. Again, this was not expensive. The next item is the amulet. This costs between 1 and 2 Exalted Orbs, and the stat you're looking for is +1 to level of all lightning skill gems. Do you guys see a pattern here? We really want +1 to level of our Spark. So all of these have +1 level. Turns out this amulet is actually pretty good aside from that, because it has some life, some chaos res, some crit strike multi, and some dex, and we do need dex on our gear. So this is probably a pretty good deal at 2 Exalted Orbs, but over time these amulets will keep going down as people move on to +2 level amulets, because you can get lightning skill gems as well as intelligence skill gems. I don't remember, but you can get +2 total on your amulet. All right, so for the body armor, I just bought a body armor and crafted it myself, same way I crafted the helmet. It cost me 40x because I bought it on, or sorry, it cost me 40C because I bought it on the first day, but these just keep going down in price. It's not really a significant cost. Call of the Brotherhood, I bought it for 20C on the first or second day, the second day. Again, fairly cheap, easily obtainable for a second build. And all the other pieces of gear have nothing special on them. The boots, just stats. The belt, just stats. Gloves, just stats. Like, these are all very, very cheap. You just get whatever. Although the implicits on the glove are pretty important for a build. You get the implicits using these currencies, and I got with the blue currency, you can get lightning damage leech to life, and it's 2% of lightning damage, which is massive. So that's really, really good. And with the red one, I got freezes will spread to nearby enemies. But again, like, you can just roll until you get something good. Just keep in mind, this is how we get our lifesteal. Although there are alternative ways that I talk about in my initial build guide. So for flasks, we have Corrupting Blood on the Divine Flask. We have, on the Life Flask. We have Ignite on the Enduring Eternal Mana Flask. This isn't really crafted properly. It's just a Quicksilver. Rumi's Concoction gives us a lot of armor and gives us decent chance to block, so this is very defensive, and I would recommend using this. The Onslaught Flask gives us increased armor. Now, if you want to get another suffix, you could go for either increased movement speed on the Quicksilver Flask, or you could go for increased cast speed during Flask effect. The cast speed will increase our damage quite significantly. And the flasks are all important, so do not ignore flasks. We're not quite done covering the gear because there is gear invested into the passive tree. For jewels, you want ideally crit multi with life. If you want to get 2 crit multi mods with life, that's going to run you about 1 Exalted Orb. So this has 2 crit multi with life. This has 2 crit multi with life. And this one here, where is it? This one here has 1 crit multi with life and then cast speed. And this is second best. If you can't get crit multi, or if you can't get 2 crit multi, get crit multi with cast speed. This is much, much cheaper. It's maybe like 15C. So if you're on a budget, second best option. Now, Replica conquers efficiency, not important, but it lowers your mana cost. It just makes the build a little bit more comfortable. You could substitute this with another rare jewel for more damage. That's fine. Now, this next pair of jewels is, I'll just take them out so you can see it. It's the new boss drop jewels for Conviction of Power. This is a Hierophant ascendancy that gives us +4 to minimum power charges and +4 to minimum endurance charges. Now, at the time of this video, I spent about 4 Exalted Orbs total for both of them. But like there was only 1 of this on the market when I bought it. So I have no idea if these are going to go up or down in price. So that's like a big question mark. But right now, allocates Conviction of Power for Forbidden Flame and allocates Conviction of Power for Forbidden Flesh. And hopefully those stay at around 4 Exalted Orbs or they decrease, but I can't predict that. The last 3 things we have to talk about are the clusters. Now these medium clusters are actually important, so I'm going to talk about them first. They cost 20 chaos, and you need to get aerodynamics because we need Pierce. Very, very, very important to get Pierce. So it's a 20 chaos investment each. They must have aerodynamics. The other one, I'm using Repeater, but it doesn't matter. Just use whatever one you can get. And the large cluster, it's going to run around 1 Exalted Orb, and you just want 3 decent mods. Mine aren't, I didn't specifically go for these 3. It's just they all do decent stuff. So you can do a little bit of research. You can also get some lifesteal, but I already have lifesteal in my gloves, so I didn't go for it on the jewels. Yeah, I think the large cluster is more expensive if you get the lifesteal node, so just keep that in mind. All right, the last thing we have to cover is just a real quick once over of the jewels we're using. So Frostbomb plus increased area of effect. This is utility and it's optional. The reason I use it is because you can just click it on an enemy and they will stop healing. So it's good against bosses with Maven healing them, and it's good against arch nemesis bosses that have vampirism or just any enemy that can regen or heal. Tornado with increased duration. This is another utility / bossing skill. You can just cast it down before you're going to start some sort of encounter, like opening some like boss event or, you know, opening an arch nemesis, opening strongbox, like whatever, just precast it. And then you're going to be shooting your sparks through the tornado. The tornado is going to add more damage. It's a great damage buff in general. Sniper's Mark. Again, you just click it on a boss or click it on a rare enemy that's not dying very fast. You do more damage. Vol Molten Shell with cast when damage taken. We have quite a bit of armor, so this is the best guard skill to use. Flame Dash with Arcane Surge support. You want Arcane Surge to be low level and Flame Dash to be high level so that you're proccing Arcane Surge with 1 Flame Dash. Arcane Surge adds 10% more spell damage to your spark, and I'm actually not even factoring that into my damage, so my damage is quite a bit more than this number. And the Arcane Surge also gives you a significant amount of mana regeneration, so this is just a no-brainer to use. And for the auras, we have Defiance Banner, we have Determination, Zealotry, Tempest Shield, and I'm using an Enlighten 2 to make it a little bit more comfortable. I'm planning to hopefully get this to Enlighten 4, but it's not really necessary. Now, the main event, the Spark 6th link. We have Spark. Level 2120 was pretty cheap, so I just went ahead and bought it. Inspiration. If you go Divergent, your mana cost goes down significantly. Spell Echo. Increased critical damage. We're using increased critical strikes to get our crit chance to 100%. So we used to be using Assassin's Mark to get it to 100%, but I thought maybe just having 100% at all times is better because it's just a lot more smooth and guaranteed damage. So it's just more consistent freezes as well. And it's also more consistent boss DPS because with this Ascendancy node right here, your critical strikes ignore enemy monster resistances, and this is applicable on bosses. So it's just going to make killing bosses faster. The final link is added lightning damage. We'll want to eventually make it awakened added lightning damage because you get +1 to level of supported lightning skill gems. If you remember going through the gear, we want +1 levels to our Spark. All right, well, that was a quick rundown of the skills. Thanks for taking the time to watch this really long guide, and I hope it helped you out. I will see you in the next one. Peace.